At Flats, now that the season is nearing the end, was there stuff you really did or didn't like? Gather a lot of people didn't like this season.
I hadn't thought about doing a season 2. Oh, do you want a season 2.0 or season 2 and 2.5 review? I hadn't thought about doing one. Actually, that's not a bad idea.
More decades.
Obviously, I wasn't as prepared for that because I just kind of came in as we're talking, as I'm literally starting stream, but I think that is actually a really good question. That's a really, really good one. I think this was probably the most, I think it's easy to say, the most challenging season, both from a game side, player side, community side, etc. for many, many reasons. I'd say season 2 started off pretty poorly, actually. I think a lot of people were really upset with the balance changes going into season 2, even though it really shook up the game, right? Like, characters like Mr. Fantastic and Iron Fist became meta. The addition of Emma Frost was actually very exciting. There was a new tank added to the game. Supports weren't getting nerfed, or support ults weren't getting nerfed, although people felt like supports were still weak, so like a lot of people were clamoring for supports to be stronger. God, I'm losing track of time. I don't even remember when the support strike was. It was 1.5 or it was 2. But overall, though, I think a lot of people were a little bit down on the game going into season 2, and on top of that, the Steam numbers, which everyone loves looking at for many reasons, also kind of reflected that, and they didn't bring as much hype as previous seasons. That being said, though, I think they did a pretty good job overall. They completely shook up the game. They shook up the meta. So season 2.0 going in, I think they did a good job shaking up the meta. But, you know, I'm not really sure if I'm ready to stand on this yet, but I have this weird sneaking suspicion that we're getting to a point where people don't like metas being shifted up as much.
Got one.
And by I mean people who are more casual to the game. The people that are more casual to the game don't have as much time to grind it, and so like if they put in time on, say, I don't know, Storm, right, and they climb to plat and they really only play a little bit of Storm, then Storm like gets nerfed into the ground, then they don't have anything that they play otherwise that's Storm, and then they feel like they're terrible at the game, and then they don't have the like time to put in and learn something else yet, and everyone else is getting better as it goes, so they're already like starting way behind. Because like when you start a new game as an entire like player base, everyone starts at 0. Some people have like a slight advantage from mechanical skill or game sense, right? But overall, everyone's kind of starting at the bottom and like moving up, but over time that skill floor comes up and up and up, and so people feel like they're drowning and they're like not catching up. So I think that turns a lot of people off. Not saying like that's Rival's fault though. That's just like maybe a gaming thing in general. Regardless though, I think season 2 was obviously the time where everyone started to lose the honeymoon effect, right? I kind of beat it. I was more like season 1.5 is when I was kind of like, yeah, I think it's kind of gone. So I was actually early to the train, which is funny. I talked about this before. There was like a post a while back. My mods linked it to me, and it was like people like screenshotting every like YouTuber's like is Rivals dying videos, and like I got nothing on there, and I'm like, I was so early, I got nothing on it. Although I didn't make like a Rivals is dead or dying video. It was more of like, objectively speaking, the game's player base is declining and talking about why. So it's a little different, even though that's a lot of things are black and white as opposed to reality where things are more of a gray area. Regardless though, season 2 was definitely not my favorite. Season 2.0. It just didn't feel very good. Felt kind of boring, and it was not as enjoyable. I don't really know how else to describe it.
Here they come.
They actually did the first balance patches that were not like one balance patch at the start of the season. They did a couple like mini ones in between to iron things out, like on like I think it was Iron Fist and stuff like that. They also made those Spidey changes to try to nerf dive. There was a lot of like little things that they did, which was good, but it seemed like to me that their probably big focus was shifting to season 3 and beyond, to the new format, which is going to be a new hero every month. So it almost became a maintenance season with just tons of content, is like the best way I can describe it to you, is the way it felt. Overall though, I don't think it was nearly as bad as people said, but season 2.0 was definitely the least enjoyable. 2.5, however, maybe I'm actually a little different than the masses. I think they did a pretty good job with balance. if you watched any MRC and the tournament stuff, there was a lot of really good comps that were played. There was not a lot of mirrors, and if there was mirrors, they typically figured out like why those mirrors were happening and either tried to ban them out or just had like different play styles, right? And as you got closer to like the best teams, they just had very different styles. Some teams ran res comp, some teams ran full Punisher like comps, some teams like to protect Magneto, some teams like to protect Emma. Obviously some characters were much stronger than others. Typically Mag and Emma were like the perma-ban, perma-save. But things like Groot, which used to be like a perma-ban, no longer was a perma-ban, but wasn't perma-played, but was kept in check by Wolverine. Strange made a big return. Captain America, even though nerfed, was still played a ton. Venom got played a bunch. All the supports pretty much got played, except actually Rocket even got played a little bit, not really. But Rocket's much better in like a ranked setting than in like in a tournament setting. And even on the ladder, it very rarely felt like anything was unplayable, or like you're losing the game that person picks something. Other than maybe like in really high level play like Scarlet Witch without like the Strange team up might be like a, why are we running this? You know? But my least favorite part of Season 2.5 was Ultron. The reason why for Ultron is Ultron to me feels like a DPS or a support that DPS players pick to say that they're filling. He's kind of boring to play with and to play against. And at least early in Season 2.5, teams were either playing Ultron or avoiding him like the plague. And the reason for that was a lot of games were actually determined by who had the better Ultron player. Not because Ultron was oppressive or insane, but because if you had one team that had a competent Ultron and another team that had a shit Ultron, if your Ultron was good at the game, you just win because you are now playing 5v6. And lots of players, myself included, do not like playing in matchups where it comes down to one player's 1v1. If anything, we actually ban that quite often. Hela in Season 0. That's what we did with Hela Season 0. When Wolverine was strong towards the end of Season 0 / Season 1, if it like came down to who had the better Wolverine player, we just banned that, right? Ultron also forced triple support comps. Ultron is just like he doesn't heal very much. His ult is used as an offensive ult most of the time. It's very rarely used as a defensive ult. It just feels, I don't know. Like it's a good, like I like that they tried it, if that makes sense. Like it was something better than, you know, this support does a circle of healing. I think that a lot of like the average player, like healer player, not support player, healer player wants to play heals. Just Ultron just didn't stick with them, you know? Some Ultron was MRI, which is fun to see. No, I agree. But for me overall, I don't think he really fit the healing persona of a support. He was just a DPS with a healing ability, you know? It was very interesting to me to see how angry the community was about balance in Season 2.5, because Season 2.5 felt pretty balanced to me. There was a lot of things played, a lot of things that were good, and it was just kind of odd to see how everyone was really upset about it. And like, I guess part of it would be flyer meta, right? Like, quote unquote flyer meta. But as the season went on, we kind of learned that it really wasn't flyer meta. And like, yeah, flyers were strong, but they weren't like they weren't that much stronger than they were previously. In like those metal ranks, they were strong because people can't play Hela and aim on Hela, but you can hit Iron Man shots easily, right? Or storm shots are huge. That was always the case before, and then Die ended up still being good, which, by the way, hey, not to be that guy, but if you go look at my old tier list, I remember telling you guys, the one thing I will say is BP ended up being better than all of us thought, myself included. That being said, though, I remember back then I was like, hey, don't believe the dive merchants. The dive merchants are selling you bullshit. Regardless, though, I think this was the first season for a lot of people that they started to look at the game very differently. And I would say in not good ways.
Got one.
I'm cautiously optimistic for Season 3 and beyond. Because I think that with the going to a hero every season is crazy. In a good way. Because there could be an argument to be made that it's likely that DPS is the most played role. And DPS didn't get a hero in Season 2.0 or 2.5, right? Support and tank did with Vanguard.
Got one.
And don't get me wrong, they need it more. However, though, are they the most played? I don't know, support could be, but I don't think tank is. But with the new format, where you're getting more and more heroes consistently, I think there's going to be more stuff for everyone. Because it really... I'll tell you from my old Overwatch experience, you would get a new tank or new support once a year. And it typically happens in December. And you go an entire year without getting something for your role, and most players only play one role.
Got one.
They can flex on other stuff, but like, if they're getting good at it, like they typically stay to one role. They stay to tank. Then they learn like Mag and Strange and Cap and Venom, and they learn those heroes, right? But they stay within one role because it's easier to stay within one role and learn. So if you're not getting any new content, it kind of gets dry. And also the esport tournament, I think went pretty well. The only thing is, I would say, is their marketing was a little lackluster. The marketing was a little lackluster for it. And hopefully that changes in the future, because like, dude, it's a $3 million tournament, and I didn't see much at all other than like, they gave drops to streamers to stream it, which was a good thing because it encouraged a lot of people to stream the matches, myself included. And then I think there was like sponsored streams for people that were outside of the scene. Overwatch player base is conditioned to switch better. Rivals player base does not switch in GM+. Oh, that's a funny one, because I'm gonna be honest with you, the only reason why people don't swap constantly in Rivals is because they don't know what the counter swap is. Remember, if you don't remember, there was a chart that came out when Overwatch 2 launched. It was awful, but it basically was like the starting point where people were like, oh, they're playing X hero, let me swap and I win. That does exist for Rivals already, but it's not well known, and it's not like super like necessary. You can win without it. Overwatch was conditioned to not, you just lose. And it's true, actually. It was true, at least for a long time. I think that balance-wise, Rivals is in a much better spot than people give it credit for. I think people get really upset over balance in this game, even though they don't even understand why they're upset. Whether they grab a streamer's opinion, or because they're in their one game something happened, or they read someone else's take, or whatever it might be. Mr. Flat said, so it must be true. But when I say something, the reason why I can say it is because I can back it up with either my like logic behind it, or at least explain my reasoning. But if somebody else out there parrots the opinion, they don't understand the nuance behind it, and almost like a game of telephone, it can get muddied and it becomes shit. And when it becomes shit, it turns a lot of people off, because like now they're just arguing to argue, you know? And you can have a good discussion about it, and like we can disagree, right? Like you might say like let's say you think Rocket's really strong. We can go back and forth on why we think it's strong or not strong, but like we both have we might have a strong base to be pulling off of. If someone else doesn't have that strong base, they're kind of just like trying to force their opinion through, and then like, oh, like I know it's right because I heard it from this person. It's like, yeah, but it might not be right in the context they're using, right? Or they take an opinion from 2 years ago out of context. That actually happens a lot too, which is unfortunate. Regardless though, Season 2 was pretty rough. It was pretty boring in a lot of places. The season dragged on really long. And I've said it once, I'll say it again. When a game is really bored, that's when you will see the most drama. And this season was full of it all over the place, from start to finish, except at the very start and except at the mid-season, which is where the contents came in. I hope Season 3, I think it is going to be much better. I think Season 3.5 has the potential to even be better because of the content cycle and pace. And I think the community is going to have to start getting comfy with the idea that they're no longer the top dog anymore. And a lot of the people that go around running to other games and telling them that their game is dead, Rivals is better, people that used to go do it to Overwatch people who used to do it to Apex or Valorant or whatever, are gonna have to realize
we all win and lose some smile.
Penny was terrible in Season 0. I'm sorry, dude. I don't know what to tell you. Anyways, sorry. Point is, though, you're gonna have to get comfy with that. And I think a lot of people are gonna have to get comfy with the idea that they're playing Rivals because they like Rivals. They're not playing Rivals because they hate another game or hate other games. That is going to be a necessary starting point to the future, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but hopefully it does. Regardless, if I had to rate it, Season 0 was by far the best. Season 1 was pretty good. Season 1.5 was eh. Season 2.0 was pretty bad. Season 2.5 was much better, but nothing insane. And then, here we are at the end of 2.5. End of 2.5 right now is kind of boring. There's not a whole lot happening. But I'm cautiously optimistic for Season 3, which starts on the 11th, which is in like 3 or 4 days from now. So, yeah. There you go. I think that's... am I forgetting anything major from this season 2.0 and 2.5 chat? Because this was on the fly. The only reason I did this is because somebody asked. The teamfight tactics... Okay, that was actually kind of gas. I liked it.